Welcome. Welcome to the Vegan Transformation and Empowered Vegans. We're so happy that you're here. And today, Mariquita and I are going to be talking about what does it mean to be an empowered vegan. We have a Facebook group together that we co-moderate called the Empowered Vegans Facebook group. If you're not a member already, we hope you'll consider joining us if that's a topic that interests you. But for today, we're starting a series of live events where we're going to talk about topics related to thriving as a vegan, being empowered, other topics that are of interest to our community. And so we're going to get started today. But before we dive into what we're going to talk about, we like to start with a centering exercise because this helps us to be grounded, maybe helps you to be grounded before we really get into what we're going to talk about. So Mariquita, would you lead us in a little bit of a brief centering exercise?
Yes, thank you, Angela, and thanks everyone for being here. All right, so I just welcome you to close your eyes if you feel like it, and just take some deep breaths, breathing in this warmth of life. Breathing all the way down into your hips, down into your legs, and down into the soles of your feet, connecting with Mother Earth and all of life on this beautiful planet. Just taking another deep breath and feeling the amazement of you, feeling all the magic inside of you, and just feeling that perfection that lies within your heart and your soul. And this perfection is connected to all of the universe, all living beings. Just feel that warmth of connection with all radiating through us in this circle right now, knowing that we have everything that we need, and knowing that we are on a journey of falling down and getting up, and we can get up. And we can be strong, and feeling that courage in our hearts right now that's going to lead us through today and always. Having gratitude for each other in this quiet moment, this moment of growth and awareness. And just breathing in that magic of life and giving thanks for us, for all the wisdom that's here. Just saying, aho, and yes, it is, and let it be.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you all this morning.
Yeah. Well, would you introduce yourself, Mariquita? And as you do, I want to invite, if anybody is with us live, please feel free to put a comment or introduction in the chat of where you're viewing from. But Mariquita, why don't you introduce yourself for our viewers?
All right. Thank you so much. Well, I'm Mariquita Solis, and I'm in the Atlanta area. I have been working with vegans for a long time. I'm the live stream host of all-creatures.org. And now I'm focused actually on my Uncaged Heart Coaching, which is helping men ages 40 through 60 to tap into their hearts and living an authentic life and getting away from what society is telling them they should be or what they should do, and living in this authenticity of really who they are and what they are meant to be. So it's a process of courage, clarity, and connection, back to connection to all of life. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I know your coaching and all your work is very powerful. So
thank you.
Yeah, and I'm Angela Crawford, and I'm a psychologist for many years. I was a psychotherapist. When I first became vegetarian and then later vegan, 6 years ago, I wish that had happened even sooner on the journey, but it just led me to bring the psychology together with veganism. That's been sort of my passion these last several years, and that's led me to create a website that has, articles about thriving emotionally as a vegan, and then led me to write research and write a book called The Vegan Transformation, A Journey to Heal Yourself and the World. And it's really written both for those who are moving toward or curious about a vegan lifestyle, a very inviting kind of way to enter into it, about the positives of this lifestyle emotionally and spiritually. But it's also meant for you that are already vegan to really thrive and feel inspired and even more impactful on your vegan journey. So I'm really happy to be here and also to co-moderate the Empowered Vegans Facebook group with Mariquita. So we've been friends for quite a while, but I'm in upstate New York. We haven't actually seen each other in person yet. That'll have to happen someday.
Yes, I look forward to that. That is going to be a wow. It's a long-awaited day.
Yeah. So the Empowered Vegans Facebook group, I did just want to mention briefly about that. Some of you watching are already members of it. It's a Facebook community that is a safe group where we're supportive of one another on our vegan journeys. And I do want to invite you, if you're not already a member, that you can go to Facebook, and I'll put the link in the description. You're welcome to reach out to join us. We do have a few group rules, things like respecting each other's privacy, no hate speech or bullying, of course, being kind, curious, and respectful in your comments. And that would be true here in our live events as well. And we stay away from the more kind of graphic videos and descriptions because it's really a place for support. Those of us that are already vegan know what happens. And sometimes it can be traumatizing to kind of be oversaturated with what we already know. So this is a supportive community. So if that's something that interests you, I will put that in the description, how to connect with our Facebook group. But what we wanted to talk about today was, what does it mean to be an empowered vegan? And for those of you, watching live or later, we would love for you to share your thoughts on this in the comments, or whether it be on YouTube where the video is, or in our Facebook group. But we're each going to share, and I want to invite you to go first, Mariquita, sharing what it means to you to be an empowered vegan, what's helped you on your journey to be empowered. Let you share what.
Well, for me, being an empowered vegan means being able to live in peace. Now, that doesn't mean agreeing with everything that's going on in the world, but it means knowing that I'm doing the best I can to be an example and to live up to my values, what I believe in, and that way I can sleep at night. So it means that I've worked hard on myself to develop my confidence, to be able to get out there, to be able to be on this live stream is very empowering for me to acknowledge that I've done that, and not to hide from it. But so also for I'm being vulnerable, and that's being here because we're live, and who knows what what might mess up, right? But allowing myself to be perfectly imperfect, and being empathetic if I did say the wrong thing, or say something I didn't want to say. That for me, that's empowerment. When I can show up and have the courage to possibly make a mistake that I wasn't planning on, or have things not go in perfect alignment, that's empowerment. Also being self-aware, how I show up as a person, how I'm showing up to you all watching, how I think I'm showing up, but also having the courage to ask, what did you all think about that, instead of just my own perception. But that to me is being confident and empowered. Also making sure that I live in alignment with my core values is very important to me, and that's empowerment. Because if I'm living out of alignment with what I believe in, that's not feeling powerful. That's really hiding part of myself. And recently, I just learned about spiritual. So spiritual, I guess it's intelligence. And that really resonated with me, learning about how I connect with the greater whole, and how I am involved in that greater whole connection in a spiritual sense. That helps me on my journey, that spiritual connection to all, and being aware of who I am in this larger world, where I'm not just someone in my house isolated, but where everything I do makes an impact. So that spirituality is a huge part of my life, and it's calling me back to make sure that I'm aligned in my actions with what is important to me and my core values. Because if I'm not living in alignment with my core values, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. If I'm not kind to people, I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to be able to live in peace. And as a child, I always had a very conscience that was nagging at me when I did something that I thought was bad as a child. And now, as I look back as an adult, I wasn't doing anything wrong, but it was that conscience still that was trying to keep me in the right behavior. So that's very important to me, is to live in alignment with that. And that helps me on my journey, because veganism is about kindness for all living beings, not just the animals, but the human animal as well. So if someone is cruel to me, I really do my best not to be triggered off of that and be cruel back, but to offer compassion and love in any way that I can. And to me, that's very empowering. And I can sleep at night when I know I do that. And that's part of the vegan journey for me.
Those are all beautiful things. And what helps you to live in this spiritual, compassionate way, even though there are triggers, I'm sure, that can make that hard? Do you have like a support system? Do you have practices? What helps you to do that?
Well, I have community, and now I have a lot of online vegan friends, and which is wonderful. I also have friends in person. I've been really cultivating more vegan friendships, and now I have more in person, and knowing what I need in my life to ground myself. And that's having those friendships, not just online, but in person also, and being in nature, really being outside, recognizing just a tiny leaf and or a little bush, stopping and seeing that, just a little piece of a tree, and acknowledging that, because that was something before I didn't do, but now I can bring so much peace into my life with one tiny leaf, because that leaf is representing the greater good of the earth, and that leaf is alive. And to recognize that tiny little leaf brings me immense joy and peace, and that helps me stay in this calm space as a vegan. And it can be overwhelming. I mean, I do get triggered. I see images online that hurt me, and then I have to go out and hug a tree.
So it sounds like realizing self-care is also part of it for you too, knowing where your limits are, knowing what you need to do to, stay resilient, I guess, through all this. So yeah, well, thank you for sharing. I mean, you are a great example of someone, I think, that, lives that, everything you described. And it's normal to have ups and downs. And it sounds like, you have practices and support systems and community that helps you to get through those. So.
Yes, thankfully. And it wasn't just, I had to go get them. It wasn't like they just ran to me. So
Yes, you had to be proactive in creating and discovering these communities and the supports and the different things that help you. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to share?
Well, I'm very grateful for my community. I mean, you always are there for me, just a very calm presence. So yes, and that was, the universe knows how to, once you put yourself out there and look for friends, and the universe knows who to send you. So I'm very thankful for you and other wonderful friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can relate to so much of what you shared. And, I think when we become vegan, there's a lot of new things that we discover and learn. And so much of it is joyful and wonderful because we are living aligned with our values. Sometimes there's a spiritual deepening, we feel more at peace in certain ways. It just opened my eyes to so much I hadn't realized was happening. And it made me feel empowered just to choose to be vegan. And at the same time, because we're still a minority in the world, and in a world that's predominantly non-vegan, there are definitely challenges. And so I think being empowered as a vegan is an important topic. And so what does it mean to me? I think it means, one, you mentioned the self-care. I think that's one piece of the puzzle for me, is if I don't include self-care, that like a holistic kind of self-care, I'm not going to be as empowered as a vegan as I could be otherwise. So that means, looking at things like stress management and, what do I nourish my body with, the kinds of foods that I eat, the kinds of things I read, the support systems I have. So definitely there's like a resilience and a self-care piece of it. I think the other parts of it for me are about learning, I guess, better communication skills that allow me both to speak my truth, but also to do it in a way that is confident and also relational. Like if I just speak my truth, but I'm just telling people off and not like meeting people where they're at on their journeys, like I'm not going to be as impactful. So sometimes it can be stressful because sometimes you just want to like say something that maybe won't be the most effective thing to say, but it just kind of makes you feel better in the moment. But that's not always being empowered. That's just sort of being reactive. The challenge, I think, is learning how to kind of ground myself. And I sometimes remember some insights from a book I read called Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High. And it reminds you about being intentional, pausing to think about what is your intention for a communication? What do you want for yourself, for the other person, and for the outcome, the larger outcome to be? And sometimes just being intentional like that helps me to be a better communicator because I'm coming more from the heart rather than just being reactive. And I think another part of, for me, being empowered is really discovering what my unique gifts are and my unique way of sharing this message. We're all different. Some people are like activists in a certain kind of way, and that like suits their personalities and their passions, and they're really good at it, and it's meaningful. My way of being an advocate or an activist is going to be different than someone else's. It's going to be drawn on like what my gifts are, what my personality is. And so it's like discovering how I best serve, which might not be the same as how someone else does, and feeling at peace with bringing my gifts forward. So for me, some of that has been through things like teaching and writing, and bringing my background in psychology. Those are things that I have gifts in and that fit with who I am. And I admire like the empowered way that other people come forward that is very different than mine because their gifts and their personalities are different. I think we need all of us, that each person has something to bring. And so, all of us are needed because you're going to speak to someone different than I am, and, vice versa. And so we're just all needed to kind of be like this community that can draw other people into this lifestyle, because that's ultimately what most of us obviously really long for, is to draw more and more people to this compassionate way of living for all sentient beings, for the planet, and for even our own well-being. It's like a win-win-win. So, and I guess what helps me, certainly communities like, our Empowered Vegans community and other groups I'm part of online. My immediate support system, like my husband and friends and family who, are supportive of my journey, even though not all of them are, on the same journey, kind of some are, some aren't, but they've all been super supportive, which I greatly appreciate. And, I guess having self-care practices, like I start the day like with either meditation or prayer or journaling, and usually some form of exercise and getting out for a walk in nature when possible. Just so having those different ways that I kind of stay grounded. And I like to read. I read spiritual things. I read other vegan authors. I read things that uplift me. I just am always learning and growing, and that helps me too. So those are some of the things for me. And I'm so curious, for those of you that watch now or watch later, please share with us what helps. What does it mean to you to be an empowered vegan? What is your own definition, and what helps you? And I think along those same lines, what are some of the topics you hope that we'll cover, in future sessions? Because we'll dive into some of these topics in more depth, like communication and how do we become better communicators? How do we become more impactful and effective advocates? How do we take better care of ourselves so we can be sustainable? What are some of the topics you think, Mariquita, that might be good ones to touch on?
Well, I think the one that always is coming up is about family and friends. How can we be effective communicators with family and friends? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Because that can be so emotionally difficult. We think I'll share it with them and then they'll change, and then they don't. Sometimes they do, but for many people they don't. And it's really painful because then we love them, we're around them, and yet they're not on this journey too. And it's heartbreaking, whether it be that we're concerned about their health or whether it be the sadness about the animals, and the earth. And it is hard. And for different people, it can be harder than for other people, depending on the situation that they're in. So that's an important one.
Yeah, yes, it's very important. And also, I think always talking, I think it's very important if we address putting people in their place.
What do you mean? Say what you mean by that.
So, does that work? Is that effective when we put someone in their place, or when we tell them what they need, or how could we? What does that even look like? Because a lot of times I hear, yes, I put them in their place. They didn't have a response, and what is happening in that instance when we're doing that?
So what you're saying is sometimes things you hear people say that's their communication strategy, but you're saying, is that truly effective?
Right. I think, like you were saying, communication, and then looking at ways of communicating, and then of showing up. What's the mindset before we show up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's our way of communicating and sharing the message, and what ones are truly effective or not effective? Yeah. And I think kind of related to what you're sharing is the emotions that come up for people, the sadness, the anger, and emotions can really make it hard to communicate well sometimes, because we sometimes communicate out of our emotions, which can be okay sometimes, but other times it might make us not heard as much because we trigger other people through how we're communicating, and then they shut down. So
yeah, you're right. Because
how do we navigate our emotions better?
Right. Yeah, so I was just sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, a lot of times I'll be triggered, and if I don't realize that I'm triggered, then I'll hurt someone else. And I mean, that hurts the cause.
Yeah, you'll say things in a way that then, it's kind of what you're speaking to is it can be contagious. When we're triggered, we, talk in a way that's often kind of, I guess, off-putting to someone else, in that they then will get triggered, and then we're both in fight or flight and not really hearing each other, because when we're in fight or flight mode, where we either want to fight or argue, or when we're in flight mode where we're shutting down, either of us, our thinking brain isn't working. That, you talked about spiritual intelligence. Well, also our emotional intelligence gets shut down when we're in that state. And we need to kind of work through the feeling and get back to a centered place before we can communicate in a way that maybe the other person's really going to hear us. So yeah, there's a lot to say on communication and the emotions and all that stuff that comes up. So I'm sure there will be plenty of topics we can dive into. But we really want to hear from you. So when you either listen to this video later, or when you're in our group, kind of put in the comments, what is it that you want us to kind of cover in future sessions? We're planning to have some conversations like this. We'll probably have some maybe more formal presentations about certain topics. And then we'll also have some interviews with some of our members and other people where we can learn how different people, become empowered vegans. So maybe you can share about our interview in 2 weeks.
Yes, we're going to have JJ Judd of Vegan Knowledge. So JJ turned around years and years and years of back pain by changing to the raw diet. And she had to get online and develop herself. And I mean, it's going to be very interesting to hear everyone's journey about like how did they get out? How do you put yourself out there? So to hear her story of how she was able to put herself on social media and develop everything she has done, and she's written a book, the Glad. Now I can't remember the name.
Sad to Glad.
Yeah, from Sad to Glad. Yes. So she was recently at a speaker over at our church, and so. Yes, I mean, to have that confidence that she has, it came from somewhere. So it's going to be interesting hearing her story and what we can learn from her and all of our guests and from you all, how you all are supporting each other. That's what is so nice about this is when we all learn from each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess we're nearing time to wrap up for today. Any final thoughts, Mariquita?
Well, I'm excited to be partnering with you in this, Angela, and I really encourage everyone to put your questions or comments in the chat and let us know if you have someone you want us to possibly interview or someone or some questions things that you want us to address, like Angela was saying, for topics.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're planning to do this at least for the next several months on the first and third Wednesday of the month at 2:00 Eastern time. It will usually be live, but you can also catch the replay if you can't catch it live. It's sometimes not always working your work schedule maybe, but we're going to have our next live in 2 weeks. Which I believe is Wednesday the 17th, something like that.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, but 2:00. So we'll post in the Facebook group about it. But, we definitely hope you'll join us. And thank you for tuning in today. And, just wishing you well on your journey, wherever you are, and living an empowered and fulfilling and impactful life. And sharing the message of compassion. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the group and in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.